Welcome to Uncontained, episode 177. I'm your host, Aaron Static Render, and on the show today, filmmaker Joe Clarke returns. Last time he was on the show, he was getting ready to move from Iowa out to LA and chase after his film career. He was wrapping up production on the documentary of Rob Van Dam, WWE superstar. It's titled Headstrong, so we talk about that during this episode, and he just finished shooting his first Hollywood movie too, since he's been out in LA for probably just over a year now. So we get talking about that, some of the challenges that he's had, some of the fears as a first-time Hollywood filmmaker, also some of the challenges that he had while he was working with Rob Van Dam, trying to fight for his vision of the film and where he believed the best film was at, because that's what's important to Joe when creating a film. But we cover a lot in this episode, including what happens when an actor doesn't quite believe in his film, and what could they say instead of just lie to the audience. It's all in here. Just listen. If you enjoy the episode, all I ask is that you share it with some friends and people that you think might enjoy it as well, and direct them to Uncontained Pod at Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, and follow the podcast as well. I know it sounds like a lot, but it'll only take a couple seconds. I would like to give a shout out to a podcast that I just recently found out about. It's called Badgering the Hawkeye. It's hosted by two former radio personalities that worked in Cedar Rapids, Iowa at the same time. One of them from Wisconsin, the Badger State, and one of them from Iowa, the Hawkeye State. And they joined back up together after working at Rock 108 in Waterloo, Cedar Rapids area, and are putting on a hell of a podcast. I'm enjoying listening to it, and you should check it out too. Of course, after you listen to this episode, it's Badger the Hawkeye, and you can find it wherever podcasts are played. So check it out, and let them know that Uncontained sent you on over. And now I will get right to the show. I won't keep you waiting any longer. Plug in those earbuds. This is how filmmaker Joe Clarke lives uncontained. How are you doing today, Joe?
I'm doing great. How are you doing?
Not bad, man. Not bad.
Good.
So welcome back to the show, first, I'd like to say, man.
Yeah, thanks for having me back. I'm trying to think of when the first episode was that we did, about how long ago.
It was like right before you moved from Iowa to California. You were starting to get all your stuff together,
Right.
And
this is turning into my time capsule for my life now.
It is, I'll document your whole career from
There we go.
from the point where I first interviewed
Right.
you. I can't.
Which is still at the bottom, and not much has changed, so it's fine.
But you were just recently working on a film, correct? You're out in California now. You're shooting movies, correct?
Yeah, I moved out here in April of 2018, and we released Spiral, which I think we talked about in the last episode, last October. And I released a documentary with Rob Van Dam this past March. And I've been working and filming on a new movie called Alta Vista that is hopefully going to be out next year.
Okay, all right, perfect, man. So what is the new film about?
Yeah, so
can you talk about that yet, or?
Yeah, no, I'm totally open to it, man. I'm playing a writer who moves to LA after the death of his father, and he quickly gets embroiled in the underbelly of Hollywood. And so I kind of borrowed some seeds from real life, but then I completely skew it and take it as far from reality as I can to kind of mix. I didn't want to make it too meta, but at the same time, like, this whole project has been geared toward making my first movie in Los Angeles. It's something I've always wanted to do as a kid. And so part of that commitment has been doing whatever it takes to get it off the ground. Like, the script and the story have gone through countless iterations, which is pretty typical, for a film. But
Yeah.
this was an exercise in um, getting the movie made by any stretch possible. We started filming in January. I had my hair growing out, my beard for about 10 months, and no one on earth was talking to me because they thought I was a homeless man. And
That's very, very likely out here when you see that. There's like almost more. It's sad that there's almost more homeless people than people with houses.
Yeah, totally. It's way too overpopulated here because of people like me. Yeah, we got the film off the ground, and then this last week we filmed another 8 days on it. We still have a couple days left of pickup shots and stuff, but I would say about 85% of it's in the can. And
Nice.
so we're getting closer to finishing it, which I am very much looking forward to.
Oh, I bet. I bet. Did you write the screenplay too, or?
Yeah, and like I said, like it's gone through so many different changes. Like I remember the first draft was about I moved to LA with and I wasn't even actually going to be in it at first. Is I moved in with a couple actors who were way more polished than I am, and I had another friend that was in Spiral that I wanted to be about the three of them. It was kind of like almost like a Point Break style action movie, and I don't know, it's just like things just didn't work out as I wanted to, and I think that's just part of like because out in Los Angeles the film industry is so much more prominent than Iowa.
Yeah.
There's so many other things going on that it's just a lot more difficult to get things exactly how you want them to go, and so
How is that? Like you'd think being in Iowa without anything going on, or with like a smaller movie scene, it'd be harder to get things lined up and ready to go. You'd think it'd almost be easier in LA.
mm-hmm. In some respects, it definitely is. Like when we were filming last week, we were able to cast and get locations and do all sorts of things way quicker than we would be in Iowa because there are a lot of talented people out here that are in their specific lanes, and so like you can line things up very, very quickly out here. But in Iowa, like uh, I feel like the script and the stories wouldn't change as dramatically as they do out here. Like they still dig quite a bit, but like once
Okay.
you put all the pieces in place, it's a lot easier. I feel like to carry out the vision of a film in Iowa. And like we actually did shoot for about 3 days in May for this movie in Iowa, and it was so fun because like everyone's walking on eggshells in LA trying to film a guerrilla movie because it's just a lot more difficult and it's illegal to film out in public. And in Iowa, like because everyone knew we were making a movie, everyone was like just so cool. It was like one big playground. We were just walking around in a bar at one point just filming, and the owner was just like, "Oh yeah, they're making a movie. Like we don't really care." And it was like a
What
packed
bar is this? Give them a shout out.
Gabe's Iowa City.
Oh, okay,
Woo!
Gabe's, man. That place, it has some history right there.
Absolutely, yeah. And
I'm glad
they're
go ahead.
really no, yeah. I was gonna say they're really cool. And Pete, the owner, like my friend actually sent me a clip from they had a festival there last year, and they were playing Spiral in the bar.
Oh,
And
nice.
I thought that was so cool. And so I hit him up and I was like, dude, I'd love to just do a scene there for this movie. And he literally like was like, yeah, totally, that's fine. And we just showed up, and he was just like at the bar hanging out with everyone else, and like no one even. It was like we weren't even there with a camera. It was wild.
Very cool, man. I am so glad they went back to calling it Gabe's again instead of what was it, the Picador?
Oh
Or
right, that's
yeah,
right. Yeah, I
that
forgot about that.
who comes in and changes the name of like it's actually a nationally known venue for
Yeah,
like
totally.
bands
Hmm.
anyway. So yeah, it's cool. Did you shoot upstairs where the bands play, or was this mainly downstairs?
Yeah, we were upstairs. There was a battle of the bands going on that night. And so yeah, it kind of pops. It's got some cool colors, like on the walls. It's got that grunge feel to it, and so it's a
Yes.
great location. I've shot there probably like 3 different movies have had scenes in Gabe, so I keep going back. Or Yacht Club, it's interesting. Like, we shot at St. Mary's Church in Iowa City, which I filmed a scene there in college like 12 years ago for a completely different movie. And I messaged the priest and I was like, hey, I don't know if you remember me. I filmed a scene like when I was 21 at this church. Do you mind if I do this again? Film a different scene. And he was totally cool. He's like, yeah, I definitely remember you. Show up and let's figure it out, And so like making
Very
stuff
cool.
like that in Iowa is like way easier. And I think it's just much more of a novelty. And people just like that creativity, Let's not say that LA
I see.
doesn't, but it's just I'm passionate about the filmmaking. And it's not that I don't like going with the rules, but it's just like I just want to get to the filmmaking, so like
Instead of all the red tape that you have to go
there's
through.
so much more red tape.
That makes sense, man.
Mm-hmm.
And those 2 locations in Iowa City that you mentioned, the Yacht Club and Gabe's, like very cool locations. If you aren't from the Iowa area or the Iowa City area, and Joe there, make sure you check them out. I did stand up in the Yacht Club with Tom Garland back in the day, and like you hear Yacht Club, you think all fancy and everything, but it's the basement of what used to be like a funeral home. So there were like it has a little energy there or something.
The fanciest.
The fanciest dungeon in Iowa City, right there.
There's a lot of history there too. I feel like.
Yeah. So
Catacombs of Comedy. There's your shout out there.
Catacombs of Comedy, yes. And yeah, it was Tom Garland that actually connected us the first time we
That's
did
right.
This, so.
Yeah, so cool.
So, yeah, you mentioned earlier that you shot a movie with Rob Van Dam, a documentary. You were either in the process of shooting it when I talked to you last time or about to shoot it. So how did that end up? How was it interviewing Rob Van Dam, and how did you get set up with that?
Yeah, that was actually through Tom as well. So Tom had done a couple of shows with Rob in Vegas, and he pitched him like, hey, we're going on this tour. What if Joe comes along and films it, and we make like a comedy tour documentary? And I was a big wrestling fan, and Tom knew I was as well. And so I was like, yeah, this would be cool. I'll just go a week on the road with RVD and Tom Garland. Like, I have no idea what I'm getting into, and I'm a little scared, but let's just do it. It was right off the heels of filming Spiral. So like the week after, maybe 3 days after, I hit the road with them. And
wow.
By the third or fourth, when we picked up Rob from the airport the first night, he told us that he had sustained a concussion in a wrestling match like the weekend prior. And he was like,
oh, wow.
The first thing he ever said to me was like, yo, dude, I was going to cancel you coming because I just got a concussion. And I was like, okay. Like, what is that? You know what I mean? Like, what does that mean? Like, what now? And by the third or fourth night, it was becoming apparent that the symptoms from the concussion weren't going away. He had double vision.
Shit.
And so the whole time he's like, yeah, I see 2 of you right now. And I was like, oh, wow. Like this is getting kind of a little intense. I don't know what to do. We're like, should we go to the hospital? Like, we had to make every town. So it was like this weird dichotomy of, hey, let's go get your brain checked out. And, oh, we got to drive 9 hours to Pittsburgh to make the show, So I remember it was in New York City. We were at a wrestling convention, and we were driving to a nightclub for Rob to do some surprise drop-in. And we were in a taxi cab, and I was like, Rob, I think that we should follow up after this week and go to the doctor in Los Angeles and watch your brain, get examined and figure out what's going on and bring the camera. And, I think this is the movie,
Yeah.
And so it slowly transitioned its way into about concussions and his post-concussion syndrome. And that's it kind of took a life of its own. And the movie is supposed to be done in like 2-3 months. So I was going to shoot it, edit it, give it to him, boom. but it was 2 years of filming and editing, and it was a whole process that
Wow.
I would imagine that when we first talked, I was probably hitting my head against a wall pretty hard, thinking it was never going to come out and be released. So
Yeah.
just the fact that it got released, like it went so long into production that I had to emotionally detach from it because I was like, I got to prepare for this movie never to come out. Even though I've committed this long into it, there's a chance that it's just not going to be a thing. Like we would go through 3-4 months where I'd be like, dude, I don't like the direction of this project. This is compromising my integrity as a filmmaker, and I don't want to be involved with this anymore, And then like 3 months later, it'd be like, yo, dude, I think we should just change this and I'll get back on board. We did that like 3 times in the span of like probably 9 months. And so there was a lot. It was a huge tug of war. I still probably only got, I would say, about 50% of the creative vision that I wanted, but I think it was a great experience for me to go through that and to like have like kind of learn about that process, and not, it's always been about me, so it's like good to collaborate and not try and win every single battle.
Yeah, so what were some of the things that made you like, oh, dude, I'm out, and then what like pulled you back in? Just almost sound like I'm quoting a mafia movie right there, but
yeah, I went straight for a while. I got out, and then they pulled me back in. I would say like just some of the tonal direction, and I wanted to make. I tend to get a little bit grittier with the edits.
Okay.
I love movies like Beyond the Mat and The Wrestler, and I think Rob was just worried of like, dude, I hired you to make this movie to be about like how are you going to tell me what my fan base wants and doesn't want, And my argument to him was, I didn't think we were making a movie for his fan base. I thought we were just trying to make the best movie we could, And so I wanted to transcend his fan base I wanted to transcend like wrestling and just make like a good movie. That's always my goal. Like I made Up on the Rooftop, which was a Christmas talking dog movie, which on the surface, like my intention throughout that was like, my goal was to like get past that genre and like make just a good movie, like whether or not we hit that, I probably not, but at the same time, like in my head I was going into it like this is going to be like the next ET or something, like that was the goal. It wasn't just like this. And so that's always my goal. And so with Rob, I felt like he was bottlenecking us a little too much toward his fan base when I thought we should have been thinking bigger. By the way, we're both way too open and honest in interviews about that, so it's not like I'm throwing shade. Like I've seen so many interviews where he's like, "Joe's this." So like we're actually really good friends, but we just I guess in interviews we'll talk shit against one another about our philosophies.
Fair enough, man. And one thing you can say about that too is like with his fan base, what his fan base I'm sure really wants is to know the real Rob Van Dam. And that is something that he was dealing with going through, and also shows like, and I'm sure you weren't trying to make the Will Smith movie about concussions, but it kind of turned into something to bring awareness to head injury, possibly.
For sure. And I think that, with Rob, his gimmick was that he was unbreakable and he was like a superhero. And so here I'm this kid coming in saying, hey, let's present all of your vulnerabilities. That is like the antithesis of what his gimmick is. And so like there's a constant tug of war of like, hey, show your human side, like always show more. Like in wrestling, they call it selling. That's when if you get hit, you're going to sell it like you actually got hit and it hurts. And what I was trying to get him to do was to sell in life. You know what I mean? And so, with a lot of respect to him, like at first it was very little concussion stuff, and he actually came around quite a bit. So we did meet each other somewhere in the middle, and so like I learned a lot about compromise and working together with people, and a lot of stuff that I'm glad that I went through.
Yeah. So how do you go face to face or toe to toe with Rob Van Dam on a creative vision when he's Rob Van Dam? And at the
And I'm
time,
fucking nobody.
at the time, I wasn't gonna say nobody. I was gonna say a relatively unknown artist,
No,
filmmaker
totally.
from Iowa. But
Less than that.
yeah. So what was it like, or where did you find the testicular fortitude
That's
to?
a great drop. Really good drop. Anytime we can quote Mick Foley, I'm all in.
Exactly.
I actually do remember he sent me a text one time where I was like going off on him, and he was like, dude, you already think you're a legend. It was so funny to me because I was like, yeah, maybe I am like speaking out of turn or whatever, but I've been making movies for as long as I remember, and like so that's like when it comes to filmmaking, that for me is like one of the few things I can at least somewhat have in control.
Yeah.
And so when I do get invested in a project, I do want to have that control, and so I will go to bat for that, regardless of who the person is, and I'll fight for what I think is um, what I believe in, and like again, props to Rob. Like, he's very open to my input, and like he was never like a jerk about anything. Like,
Yeah.
I think he respects my opinion, and like I respect his. And I think what we found out is that you can have differences with people and philosophical differences, but that doesn't have to be like a deal breaker in how you work together with someone. You just like that's just who a person is, and there's nothing wrong with that.
Definitely, dude. Definitely. And I almost think like with like even though it may have like pushed his buttons a little bit, I bet you he respected you more for standing up for your vision than just being like, "Yes, Rob, right away, Rob. We will do this, Rob."
Totally.
And
I think he wanted that, to be honest, like he would like I felt, maybe this is just me reading into it, I felt like he would give openings to like give me the opportunity to do that,
okay.
maybe not like completely consciously, but like yeah, there was like a sequence in it that did make it to the final cut that I was like, I think this is a great sequence. This is like my favorite part of the movie, and I put in the contract, I was like, you can't touch this scene. You know what I mean? Like, you can't change it. It took me like 2 months to make. It was a lot of digging. It just was like a scene that I'm really proud of, that people have said has been really impactful when they watch it. And so, what if I had that scene, then I was like kind of on board for the rest, to be honest.
Perfect, perfect. So, like, is any of this banter between you and Rob in the video or in the documentary?
No, but maybe it should be. No, but like I said, he's really cool in the sense that like, so we're making the DVD right now. We're releasing that hopefully like this holiday season, and he would do stuff like, hey, do you want to put any of your movie trailers in the extras? Like something that he didn't have to do,
Yeah,
Or
definitely.
I think I might even put a stand-up clip that I did at Penguins in Cedar Rapids that he was
Oh,
like,
right on.
hey, put this clip in there. And I was like, why? You know what I mean? But like, cool, man. That's nice of him to do, And
Yeah,
so
definitely.
he kind of has that like older brother vibe about him where, we'll fight and bicker and stuff. But I do feel he has like an authenticity and a genuineness about him that he does want to help me out, and that's really cool.
Yeah, definitely, dude. And man, that's something though. Like one of your first films, like, well, not your first films, I'm
Mhm.
sorry, but like
The first
getting
5 don't count, dude. They're not good enough. No,
but
I got you.
but you got up on the rooftop with Mr. Belding, man. Come on.
It's all down. It's all been downhill from there.
Yeah, but to have him as like in your credentials for having a documentary shot with Rob Van Dam and the stories that go with that, you could probably make a whole nother, at least a web series off of the stories of shooting the documentary with Rob Van Dam.
No, that's a great point, and I always do think of how fortunate of like. So I've always wanted to make a wrestling documentary, so it definitely crossed off that box. And I feel like I think about how I think Rob was the perfect wrestler to be involved with this project. Like, I feel like he has a fan base that just works and meshes really well with the path that I'm on. That like, just everyone just looks back fondly on him. You know, he was the coolest wrestler for me to be able to do this sort of project. You know what I mean?
Definitely.
And like, you know, like someone like even like a Stone Cold or The Rock, like they're already like these iconic figures that like Rob is a legend, but like this is his next cool thing that he's done. And so it's a really cool thing to be a part of that.
For sure, dude. So where can people go and check this out? Is it on Amazon? Because I actually, like, I haven't had a chance to check it out yet. I want to, especially after hearing this conversation, I really want to, like, go listen to it and be like, see if I can guess which scene you're like, this has to stay in here.
I would love if you did that. That'd be cool.
All right, yeah, I want to watch it. Where can people find it? I know you're talking about a DVD possibly coming out this Christmas season.
I'll explain what a DVD is then after.
Or Blu-ray. I'm
Blu-ray.
Sorry.
No, I was gonna say like I asked him, I was like, dude, our DVDs. I think we're making a DVD, but I don't know if it's Blu-ray. I don't even know if they exist anymore. It's crazy.
I thought you were busting my balls
no,
on
no,
DVD
no,
Blu-ray. I'm like,
no,
sorry, film, dude.
Not at all. I wanted to come out.
Think you're a fucking legend already.
That's hilarious. I want him to put it on VHS. I think that would be really cool. To do. I think that'd be awesome.
Or at least have the like DVD Blu-ray case look like a VHS.
Oh, that's a great idea.
Like
maybe
case.
the VHS opens up into the DVD or something.
Yeah, something like that. I don't know. Just brainstorming here. Take it if you like it.
Yeah,
throw it away if you don't.
We have a whole new marketing campaign on our hands. So.
Exactly. Go approach Rob Van Dam with that right now.
He's like, dude, fuck off. I'm like, wait, what?
Damn it, Joe Clark City! I'm sick of your suggestions.
So Headstrong can be found. It's on Amazon, iTunes, Google Play, Vudu, so a lot of the major streaming platforms.
Okay.
Fight TV, it's on there, and it'll be on Shrug DVD or Blu-ray this holiday season. We'll find out.
Betamax,
yeah. There's a Game Gear version coming out. That's our play along.
Yes. Oh, that'd be kind of cool. Somebody hits you over the head, you're concussing double. Please don't beat me up, Rob Van Dam.
It's all chair shots.
Yes. All right, so let's switch back to talking about your new film before we jump into the final questions of the show here. So, real quick, like just to recap, since we talked about it at the very beginning of the show, you want to throw out the plot of this, or at least the synopsis of the plot. Mm-hmm. One more time. I apologize.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So I'm playing a writer, and I moved from Iowa to LA, and I get mixed up in a lot of shady Hollywood producer land stuff, and it bends into different. I don't want to go into too much spoilers, but
okay.
At one point, it's a big scale film it's a very small film. But the way in which we shot it, it's pretty cool because it'll go from one scene where I look like this, or I have a buzzed head, and the next scene I have like a full head of hair and a beard, and I think it's going to take some twists and turns, and it's going to, I think, be a meaningful film for people that experience it.
Okay, is this in any way based on what you've experienced in LA so far?
That's a great question. You know, I definitely what my goal was to make a movie that like friends in Iowa, when they watched this, they would be like, dude, what have you gotten yourself into out there? That was really the goal, because I would be like, I wanted to start to have audiences think like, okay, like, is this supposed to be like real? Is this based on real life? And then once you accept where we're at in the foundation, when it starts to take different twists and turns, I think it's gonna start messing with people's heads a little bit. And
Okay.
so
It
a
seems like
lot.
you kind of like those
I was
movies.
just gonna say,
Like,
like, this is, I would say, my closest follow up from Spiral, just in terms of creativity and what I wanted to do. Like a lot of the goal of this and what it turned into was I wanted to make an LA movie that had like that looked and felt as big of a journey as possible. And I think, given our very limited resources, and like I said, this was most people want to build to bigger and better in terms of budget and crew and size and all these things. And I do want to get to like a studio level where we're making cool blockbusters. Like, that's why I got into movies. But like
yeah.
for this film, I really wanted to. I would say it's most it's very stripped filmmaking. Like, I wanted us to have as little resources as possible so that we could see where we could go with things to still make it a good movie, and to have our creativity be the number one asset.
All right, man. I'm definitely looking forward to
I know
checking
that
that
doesn't
out as
reveal
well.
anything about it,
It
but
doesn't, but
that
I understand. There's some movies that you just can't say a
mhm.
whole lot about without giving
And I
everything
really
away.
like with stuff like Headstrong and like Up on the Rooftop, like those movies. You know what you're getting into, and I think part of the fun of Spiral and what Alta Vista is that I want people to go in, especially to a theater. You go and you sit, and you kind of know what you're getting into, but it's like a roller coaster of where you get on and you don't quite know where it's going to take you. And I feel like that's rare enough these days, especially in a theater, that I think it's kind of fun to keep that mystery as much as possible. Like, for example, I think back on like Eyes Wide Shut. It's a really cool movie. I like that movie, but
Yeah.
like I remember the leading up to it, there was so much speculation as to what the movie was that it took on a life of its own, you know? And I'm really interested in that.
You know, I don't think I've ever actually seen that whole movie. Like, I don't know, it's just time or something like that. I had to get up and leave before I finished it or whatever.
Mhm.
So I still don't know what that whole movie exactly
No
is
one
about,
does.
besides
Nobody
like
does.
some secret sex club and sacrifices, or I don't know. I'm just making shit up now,
No,
but
no. I think that was the point, though. I think the movie was about, especially before the release, was creating the craziest narrative of using people's wildest imagination, what they thought it was going to be.
you know what it's about. I just figured it out
What's that?
with Tom Cruise in it.
Mhm.
It's what really goes on at
There it
Scientology
is. Yeah,
meetings. Yeah,
that's true.
yeah. It's like, and that's why Nicole Kidman ended up leaving and running
Totally.
away. You
I believe
know,
that.
like
I'm into
my
it.
eyes.
See, that's what
Yeah,
that's also that's also what I'm into, is figuring out what the secret is behind the make it. You know what I mean? Like when they say with the movie, you see is you only see like 1% of what actually happened in that time.
yeah.
You know, and so like yeah, I'm excited to see how people are going to react when they watch this, and what the theories are of like what was real, what wasn't real. You know. And I think that's going to be exciting to see, you know.
All right, all right. So who's in Alta Vista?
We don't have any like big names right now.
That's all right. You give him a
And
shout out.
yeah, we actually do have like some pretty talented folks. So Stacy Scowley, she's on Fresh Off the Boat, which is on ABC.
Okay.
And she's been in like a bunch of movies. Nancy Youngblunt, who she's been on like a bunch of TV shows herself, and so like that was the cool part, is that like we had a bunch of talent that like are experienced actors in the industry that were just totally down to help me out and just be in the movie, you know? And like,
That's cool.
that's a big difference from, you know, filming in the Midwest where it's like, oh, this person that's coming in, she's doing one scene and she's been in like 40 TV shows. And it's like, oh, wow. And she was on Broadway. And so like I was acting in the scene with her. I was like, I was like, how do I explain to her? I'm like, hey, I'm not a good actor and I don't know what I'm doing. And you're a professional. So I'm just going to try my best not to look like a freaking idiot in front of you, you know? And so that was the fun of it, though. We had this really cool dancer named Future, spelled Phyouture. He makes a cameo. He's really, really cool. He's got a big following online. So we have a bunch of like experienced actors and stuff, but we also have a bunch of non-actors because my producer asked me, he's like, this is like the most quote unquote non-actors I've seen in a movie that I've worked on. And I'm like, I think it's because making movies as a kid and growing up, I never had quote unquote professional actors. I always had to rely on like friends and family. So I'm almost just as effective working with non-actors than I am working with, you know, pros that have been in the industry forever.
Definitely. Well, if you ever need a non-actor, let me know.
Cool.
Because I think that'd be fun, man.
Heck yeah.
Especially in some movie that messes with people's minds. I would like that.
You're in it? Cool. I'll remember that.
All right, for sure. All right, dude. So when will that actually be coming out? Or I know it's still kind of in the works, so a speculation of a tentative release date.
I'm looking to finish it by the end of the year. So at that, I'm hoping 2020, but like things move really slow. So once it's completed, then you know we're gonna decide if we're gonna go the film festival route, straight to distribution, what we're gonna do with it. I guess when we do this again in another year and a half, we'll have that answer.
I was gonna say when it comes out, you'll have to come back on and talk about it for sure.
This is the time capsule for me.
Exactly, the Joe Clarke time capsule, right here on Uncontained.
Is that the title?
Either that, or else you think you're a fucking legend. You already think you're a legend?
You already think you're a legend. I'm into that. Yeah,
one of those.
Regardless, I'm gonna get a shirt made with that just says legend on it. So we're already a legend.
Already a legend. The legends you don't know about.
I'll get spit on by everybody that I know.
That's all right. Then you can just be like Kanye and tell me you're all a genius.
Oh, there you go. Yeah.
All right. So moving out to LA, making a movie, and like starting out in Iowa, what advice do you have for somebody who's like maybe even starting out in a non-movie center, a place that doesn't have a movie scene, wanting to get into movies?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. To be like perfectly honest, like Alta Vista has been, I mean, every movie has its own challenges, but like this has been a very challenging time for me. Like I went all in on trying to make this movie. And like, for me, like I said, I always go into a film thinking that it's going to have like mass appeal or it's going to be a breakthrough movie for me, because I haven't had that yet. And so like, that's always my intention, is to make, not necessarily specifically to get like, you know, rich or famous, but I want to make like a really good movie. That's always the goal,
of course.
You know? And so for me, this has been this passion project. I've been working on this for like a year and a half now, and it's still a really small movie. And like when I have people close to me that say like, so you don't have name actors, the marketing, I don't know how you're going to do that. What are you gonna do with this movie? You know? And so like in a lot of ways, you know, I go through a lot of like existential moments where I'm like, shit, like, have I wasted my first year and a half by like, is this the wrong movie? Am I making the wrong moves? And so, but at the same time, like I just dove in and did it, you know? And so like usually my advice would be like, if you want to do anything, movies, music, stand up, like just go and do the thing. At the same time, I'm also now like looking back on this movie, and I'm like, I went in so far head first. I don't regret it. and I would do it again, but I'm in the thick of the rabbit hole of I don't know what's going to happen. I could fall hard on my ass, and this could be the end of my
Yeah.
dreams, And so like I would love to say like yeah, just go do it, but like I went and I just did it, and I'm like so totally freaked out about it. You know what I mean? And so I guess the takeaway bottom line is advice is um, just go and do it.
Fair enough, man. And you were saying you don't know what you're gonna do with the movie right now, like whether you don't know how you're gonna promote it. You don't know, like there's a chance, as with every film in Hollywood, that something might not come out. But the one thing I see you taking away from it is you made a lot of connections and made a lot of connection with working actors and non-actors. So that you'll have for that moving forward too. I could be wrong. You could have
No,
burned
totally.
every bridge you had with everybody you worked with, but I doubt you did that.
No, I think that and that was a really cool thing to see was that everyone that did get involved with the movie was like, it was a really small project. They didn't care. They were happy to be there. They wanted to do it. It seemed like we were all getting along really well. We all had really good chemistry. So that is like a big takeaway. And like I said, like before we started recording this, I was like, dude, I'm nervous about this because this has been a really tough week for me. And so like I'm in the thick of it right now, like I'm in the belly of the beast. And so, like, it's hard for me to have a lot of perspective right now because I'm so in the thick of it that, like, from an outsider's perspective, who knows? I could be like, Joe Clarke's a legend already. You know what I mean? and for me, I'm like, this, I could be out of LA in like 6 weeks. You know what I mean? Like,
Okay.
And I don't know. I don't know if that feeling ever goes away. I don't know if it's real. I don't know if it's just in my head. And so a lot of like this is what the movie's about too. It's like I took all of these insecurities and fears and I kind of challenged them, or I harnessed them into like story mode,
Okay.
And, so I think that at a subconscious level, it's going to be really relatable because I think that's what. I think people go through this a lot, but it's just like, I don't know, weird to talk about, I always think, even on like interviews and stuff, like if you watch like Jimmy Fallon, there's no actor that goes on and they're promoting a movie and they're like, this is the best movie ever. Or they always say like, this movie's awesome. Go see the movie. It's great. It's this. And like, I asked my brother, I was like, what if I'm not happy with the movie? You know what I mean? Like if I go onto a platform and say, I'm really insecure about this, and this, am I selling it short? Am I exposing myself? Like, is that being too honest, too raw? Like, I don't know, but I'm doing the best that I can,
Hell yeah, dude. Hell yeah. And, honesty is great, but it's not always the best when trying to sell something. You can bet your ass a lot of those actors that go on like the late night shows and say their movie is the best. Some of them know that the movie they just worked on is a giant piece of crap and just want people to go out and see it so the studio can recap some of their money so they can continue working.
I've already fucked myself. My first interview on the movie, and it's already in the shitter. Damn it.
Right now, just go ahead. Just go back, be like, man, this is going to be awesome. You're going to love it.
The best.
Alta
Vista is the best movie in the world ever conceived in cinema.
Yes, there you go. Groundbreaking.
I think, no, I agree with you. Like, I remember trying to look up a movie and like, I was looking up a really bad movie and I was like, I'm going to find the talk shows and see what they said about it. Be like, there's no way they're going to defend this movie, And I think they did.
Yeah. Like, did you look up Geely?
Yeah, that's what I'm going to do next. I'm going to go watch Jay Leno and see what Ben Affleck said about Geely.
Yeah.
And if he said it's good, then you're never going to hear me say another negative thing about Alta Vista or any of my movies ever again.
Exactly. Because, all you got to say is Geely. That's what you got to be like, hey, it's not Geely.
It's not Geely.
All right, go watch it.
That's the tagline for the movie. Alta Vista. It's not Geely.
There you go. I think we're on to something here.
Yeah. We've created 3 marketing campaigns in the first 45 minutes of this podcast.
Hey man, we're just brainstorming here. You know, it's all good. It's all good.
This is the true Uncontained pod. This is the future is marketing platforms.
Exactly. Brainstorming is actually something I really enjoy doing. Just throwing out ideas or playing games like catchphrase or something like that, where you have to guess what something is. You start out throwing out the most ridiculous things just to get like the creative juices going, and then next thing you know, you're like, okay, that's actually kind of good. That was right.
Yeah, and that's what a lot of what we did is. I remember one of the actresses stepped on the set of the movie and was like, she asked about like how the set was conducted. She's like, "Do you mind if I say this?" And I was like, "Dude, the sound guy chimes in all the time about ideas. You know, like you would never see that in a movie ever. But on this movie, I'd be like, hey, Carl, what do you think about this?" And he'd be like, you know. But
Joe, I don't think I'd go that direction.
Yeah, I'd be like, all right, Carl, the sound guy says we got to go a different direction.
Because you got to think about the synergy and the birds over there and the squirrels and the chipmunks and something so crazy it comes back and makes sense.
But Carl would do that from like a story perspective too. He'd be like, dude, I think we got to get the squirrels involved in this movie. I'd be like, okay, if you say so.
You're like, hey, talking dogs worked.
Yeah, that's true. I actually did. We didn't film it. I might still put it in, but I wrote this sequence where the character is like super high and he's outside and he's just kind of like out of it, and a crow is on a telephone pole and he looks up and he starts talking to the crow, and the cinematographer was like, are you just going to get Fernando to do the talking dog effect on the crow? And I was like, absolutely yes. So at some point I will bring a talking animal back, but
nice
differently into the fold.
Fair enough, man. Fair enough.
By the way, is me describing that not filmed crow scene more enticing and more selling for you to see Alta Vista, or less so?
It could be interesting. It's not, there you go. I'll tell you this. It's not Geely.
It's not.
But no, that could be interesting depending on how you do. It's a crow actually going to talk back to him?
There we go.
Or what's the crow going to tell him?
This is your first movie, The Crow.
Yeah. Yeah,
anyway, that's already a movie.
That is a movie, and that was a good movie.
It was a good movie. It was
tragic.
It wasn't Geely.
No, it definitely was not fucking Geely. Now I know we've kind of talked about a marketing campaign, at least 3 of them. But what are you currently doing in real life to promote yourself?
I love Instagram because I've been connected with people that have like really been fundamental in the process of my filmmaking, and like there have been people I've never even seen in person or met in person, and they've been like vital parts. And so I like this concept of like blasting out who you are through social media into like this abyss of you don't know where it's going, but on the other end can be like a connection to someone that like really helps you out, you know? So I definitely believe in the power of that, you know?
Definitely, dude. Definitely. And, you know, you can make some great connections like that. Like I've interviewed so many people that I've met like online that I've never actually met in person, you know? So it's like
totally
the World Wide Web, dude.
Yeah. And so that's what, and obviously all of it's like movie related stuff usually. And, I'm super touristy still in LA, and I like never want that part to go away. And so like if I see like a celebrity or someone that had a big impact on me, like I just saw Ben Savage from Boy Meets World like 2 weeks ago, and I walked up to him and I was like, yo dude, can I get a picture? We like hung out for like 5 minutes. And so like my friends always, especially here, give me shit because they're like, dude, don't take selfies with celebrities. That's the lamest thing in the world, you know? And I'm like, but I just saw Dave Chappelle. What else am I going to do? You know?
Of course, if I see Dave Chappelle, I'm getting a selfie,
all day long, unapologetically so. And so, like, in a weird way, I feel like some of my promotion, people are like, all you do is take selfies with celebrities. I'm like, fine by me. If that's my worst case scenario in life, I'm great with that.
There you go. There you go. Your own paparazzi.
There you go.
Okay, people listening can't see this, but I have to describe this. Like when we first started talking, we're doing this on like video so we can see each other. It was nice, brightly lit, and everything like that. You could see carpet and everything. Now it looks like those interviews on 60 Minutes where it's trying to protect somebody's identity, and I'm not scrambling your voice, dude.
I was gonna say,
there you go.
Please don't scramble my voice.
all right, but I just had to throw that out there.
The light switch is like too far, so I'm like, do I take the headphones off, hit the light switch real quick? I don't want to risk the dead space.
If you want to hit the light switch, I can edit it out.
Oh, here we go. 5 seconds. Here we go. You're gonna have to
stall. Or I won't edit it out. We'll see. So on this trip to the light switch, he's moving. He's back. Oh, it was just 2 steps across the room, and he's back.
So, what's weird is I actually had the most dimly lit room of all time. So I feel like this did not help out at all, but that's all right.
It's all right. I can actually see Batman on your shirt now.
There we go.
So there you go. I feel safe. I feel protected from crime and the Joker.
My mom got this for me, so
Hell
my mom
yeah,
has
dude.
bought about 40% of my fashion, so that's there you go for my LA legend status.
There you go. You need to have her buy you that legend shirt. I'll tell you that.
Yes, that's she would. She definitely would. She would love that.
All right. So, now, sorry about that little sidetrack about witness protection, but it was just like weighing on my head in my mind for so long.
I was with you, man. I was like, man, I feel like I got to make a move. It's gotten considerably darker in here.
I can imagine being actually a filmmaker and all. You're like, the shot is too dark. The lighting's all wrong. We missed the golden hour.
We hit it about minute 20.
Yes, and then we lost it on minute 21.
Yeah.
But now I'm sure your highlight has probably changed since last time I talked to you, or one of your highlights, or have some new ones anyway. So what would be a highlight or two that you care to share with the Uncontained audience?
I think definitely the release of Headstrong, like I said, after, the 2-year journey, I didn't think it was going to be released. So that was like huge. And then just getting closer and closer to getting my first LA movie under my belt is something that I've been working towards since I was like a kid, And so as much as I'm my harshest critic and my hardest, critic, it really is like a big thing for me to be able to do that personally.
Definitely do. I can imagine like chasing that dream, getting closer and closer, man. And being out in LA finally, after growing up in the Midwest, moving out to the actual West, and that's
a great point.
That.
That's like I said, I tend to get caught in the moment and like don't have that like big perspective, and so it's I think like I was gearing up to move here the last time we spoke, and so
yes,
like right now I live in Beverly Hills, which is awesome. I didn't expect that to happen.
Oh, nice.
I live in a really cool neighborhood. I live like a block from the Four Seasons. I go there all the time, and like all the staff knows me. Like I had a date last night, and like I was like, this is like a ridiculous thought, but I was like, okay, if I bring the date to the Four Seasons, it might get a little weird because I know the staff is really cool and they're going to keep coming up and saying hi. And like, it might be like kind of come across as cool, but it could be come across as like planned or hokey. And so I was like,
or like, how many dates does he bring?
Yeah, exactly.
Damn.
I was like, and I did think about it, I was like, I can't bring too many dates here because eventually then the staff's going to be like, dude, like, what are you doing? So I have not, I don't go on too many dates out here, but it was cool that we went and like, sure enough, like 3 people came up. They're like, hey, what's up, Joe? Oh, you got your haircut. Oh. And so like having just that is like such a cool validation of being in LA. And like, I still view myself as like a 12-year-old kid, And so to have that is just like any little thing that happens in LA, I get such a kick out of. And it's such like a joy because I moved out here so late. I was like 30 that I don't take anything for granted, and I love every little thing that happens like that.
Hell yeah, dude. And I don't know if it's like an entertainer thing or if it's everybody that's kind of that like 12-year-old 50 whoever you were in like high school in your
Mm-hmm.
head still
Mm-hmm.
growing up, because I still kind of have that same thing where in like I still feel like I'm that kid from
Mm.
time to time.
Oh, interesting.
Chris Hardwick talked about it
Oh, really?
like on his show, and I was like, oh, that's interesting. And he's like, everybody's really at mind that same 15-year-old kid or
Oh,
something, still
wow.
worried about rejection, worried about like you're more adult, you have common sense to go with it, but you still
Mm-hmm.
have that core of who you are.
And that's what, in a lot of ways, especially this last week of filming, is I told the crew, I was like, for me, this is about embracing that 13-year-old in me, and we're gonna film it as if like we were 13 in the backyard filming a movie, and that's the whole
Nice.
approach the whole time. And so like I don't know, that was really important for me to do it that way in that style, because it was. Because I feel I still do a lot of the same things, like I like someone asked me like, hey, what are some of your favorite movies? And for a while I always like blank out, but I started like a cell phone note on my phone so that when people ask I can like, oh, let me just see, and I looked on it like last week, and it's all Jackie Chan movies. And I was like Rush Hour, Super Cop, Rumble in the Bronx, and I'm like, God dang it, I have not aged since age 13, And I watched like all those movies recently, and like I was like, okay, I'm 31 now. I'm gonna rewatch these movies, and it's gonna be like, oh, they're kind of cheesy, they don't hold up. I watched like Rush Hour, and I was like, this is one of the best freaking movies I've ever seen in my life,
The first one, yes,
Oh yeah,
definitely. The
totally.
second one
Oh, you're
wasn't
like, dude,
as
I love the
good.
second one. Third
The
one's one of the worst movies, but
Maybe it's three that I'm thinking
three's
of. Maybe
bad. Three's
where
really
where
bad.
was three? Was that in China
They go
or
to France.
France?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Second
That's
one's in China. It's okay. You can say you hated Rush Hour too. I won't hold it
no,
against
no, no. Like
you.
it wasn't as good as the first one,
Totally. Yeah.
but it wasn't Geely.
You got one more time to the well on that.
I know, but I couldn't help the callback
No,
on that.
that's all right.
I was like, oh,
That's the next. That's the episode title. Is callback.
callback. Callback. All right. Or it wasn't Geely, one of the two. I used my
Yeah.
last one. All
Yeah.
right. So no more using that.
This is gonna be the
So
most episode titles ever for one of your shows.
I know, like hashtag this, hashtag that.
Yeah. Why is hashtag at least it's not Geely a thing? Why is that trending on Twitter?
We need to start that. We need to
Yeah.
start that, and maybe we can get
It
Ben
doesn't have to be
Affleck
in
all
movies.
upset.
Like if you stub your toe, at least it
At
wasn't
least,
Geely.
at least it wasn't Geely.
I'm in for that. That's the next shirt. We're scraping the
Yes.
legend shirt. We're
No, we
going to
need to do
Geely.
both. You need the legend shirt. You need the legend
Yeah.
shirt,
Legend
because
on the front, Geely on the back.
or Rob Van Dam says I'm a legend already.
Oh yeah, yeah. I'm into that.
All right, man. So, when I know I asked you this the first time too, I want to see if your answer changed. I'll have to go back and
Yeah,
listen
me
because
too. I'm
I
gonna
didn't
listen to
go.
all these answers.
But when somebody comes and sees your film, sees your work, what do you want them to take home and remember about your work? Whether it's it can be different for, like, say, Rob Van Dam's Headstrong
Mhm,
movie
mhm,
or Alta Vista.
mhm. I think that roller coaster effect that I was talking about has applied to the last couple of the last three movies have been this format where you go into it and it starts as one thing and then it turns into another. And I hope that people, they at a subconscious level, connect with the film where they can see a different perspective on life and apply that to their own.
Okay, all right, definitely. So basically, you want people to be able to see another look outside the box a little bit from seeing your movies in a way.
Yeah, I think it's a dichotomy of looking outside the box, but also relating, you know. And
Okay.
so it's kind of like both ends of the spectrum where my life might not be the same as Aaron's life, but at the same time, we probably have both experienced general things. And
Definitely.
so Alta Vista for me, it's about loss and grief and optimism and mourning and I think those four things are pretty umbrella-esque, you know, when people think
Yeah.
about big things, you know. And so for this movie, it is like it's like one big tribute to my dad. You know, he passed away in October of 17, and that was a big impact on my life.
Yeah.
And this movie is all about that grieving process for me. And so I think that well, whether you've lost someone close to you or not, you always will, and so I want to be able to connect through that.
All right, man. Very cool. Very cool. So, like, how you can not answer this if you want. It's kind of like it has to do with your dad, but how does this film relate to the grieving process of your dad?
I think that like, well, in the movie, it's like a core theme throughout, and it connects, and it's part of the storyline too.
Okay.
And that's what I'm also big into, you know, is that movies, when you look at the surface, they'll have their storyline, but then when you say, you know, what's it really about, that's when you get to like underneath the surface, you know. And so, like I said, like on the surface, this movie, I play a writer and I moved to LA and I get involved all these like sketchy producers, but it's also it's ingrained in the backdrop of this character that's going through the impact of what has happened since his father has passed away. And
Okay.
so, and the same thing with Spiral. Like Spiral was a bunch of college friends get together. They and a bunch of like it's a bachelor party and things go batshit crazy. But what it's really about is those friendships that you had in college. That when you get together again, you've realized that like life has kind of moved on and things aren't as like mesh quite as easily, and you're different people now and what that's like to explore those kind of relationships. And so
Ah.
I think that's a common theme. That same thing with Headstrong. You know, on the surface, it's Rob Van Dam doing stand-up comedy, showing his values and his journey, but like below the surface, there's a lot more going on. You know, and so I'm always very drawn to those sort of projects where it's about one thing, but it's also about like something completely else that's very personal. I don't know if you saw the movie Midsummer. It
I have not.
was that horror movie that came out this summer, and It's about like it's like a this. It's almost like Wicker Man, where this group of friends go to this pagan community in Sweden for this festival, and
Okay.
shit just gets crazy, you know. But when people talk about it, they talk about it as a movie that's about the end of a relationship. You know what I mean? And so it's kind of
Okay.
interesting. That's like the movie's not about that, but like at a subtext level, that's what it's all about. And so that's what is this for me is. It's about one thing, but I feel like loss and grief are like two big themes for me personally. I mean, I'm sure everyone else that watched it is gonna have way different takeaways.
Yeah, that's one of the beautiful things about art. Everybody can take something different away from it. Hopefully you get your message across in what you're trying to put out there. But you know, um, it's open to interpretation.
Well, next time we talk, I guess we'll find out, right?
Exactly, man. Exactly. So, all right, Joe. Thank you for joining me tonight, man. I've had a blast catching up with you, talking about Rob Van Dam, finding out you're already a legend, and you know, I'm honored to be in the vicinity of greatness right now.
Oh, I'm
But
never gonna hear the end of this one. I'm
oh
screwed.
man,
This is the
I
beginning of the
love it
end.
though. I love it. I love it. So Joe, I have one final question for you. All right, Joe Clarke, how do you live uncontained?
I am at my most uncontained stage in life right now, I would argue. This movie I'm making it's completely outside of the studio system, and in a lot of ways, there's so many things that tell me that I'm forcing it. It shouldn't exist. It shouldn't be a real thing, and it's not a real movie. But for me, I'm pushing ahead through all the obstacles to make it a real thing, even though there is no like studio that has like brought it about, at like a blockbuster level. And so I view this as some of the most raw, uncontained, passionate commitment that you can do. This was a super small crew. I'm not an experienced seasoned actor. I dove in front of the camera. I did whatever it took to get this movie made. And I think that takes, I think that's the pillar of being what Uncontained is. It's being shed of everything and still jumping into something head first. And that's what I'm doing.
All right, perfect, man, perfect. And as I said, I appreciate you coming on the show today, man.
Thanks for having me. This is awesome.
And
this is fun.
Yeah. I'm glad you got the light turned back on so it doesn't seem like a witness protection conversation. And I feel comfortable using your actual name instead of being like, he preferred to be called Patrick.
It's my middle name, actually, so you can't use that one either.
Jesus, man. I did not know that. I am not
Just
a stalker.
Anonymous legend.
Yeah, anonymous legend, not Patrick. But I have one final thing for you to do, man, and that is sign off the show. Will you do me the honor of signing off the show tonight?
I am Joe Clarke, and I live uncontained.
And that does it for another episode of Uncontained. Thank you for listening, and thank you to Joe Clarke for coming back on Uncontained. Looking forward to having him back on in the future to talk about how the release of his movie Alta Vista went. As he mentioned, this is kind of like a Joe Clarke time capsule. Check in every year and a half, something like that, see how everything's going, and make sure you check out Headstrong, available on Amazon Prime and a lot of other streaming sources. And according to Joe, we'll see. Maybe it will be on DVD around the holidays or VHS. That idea came up in the show as well. But thank you once again for listening. Make sure you check me out on social media at Uncontained Pod, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. So please subscribe, follow, like, and keep on listening. I appreciate it. Until next time, live uncontained. No, you don't need to put hashtag in there. It's just my hashtag. I say it like that because a lot of people say I live my life uncontained, and I'm like, I didn't tell you to say that.
I'll redo that, man. My bad.
All right. Whenever you're ready, just go ahead and go.
My name is Joe Clarke, and I live my life uncontained.
You're fucking with me.
Was that I didn't do it right?
You just said what I said other people accidentally. I shouldn't even throw that out.
I thought that's what I was supposed to say. Dude, my bad. I'm so
I thought you were. You had like a smirk on your face, so I was like, "You're fucking with me, aren't you?"
Oh yeah, sorry, dude. What do you want me to say? I'm so sorry.
I am Joe Clarke, and I live uncontained.
Oh shit. Okay, I thought that's.
It's all good. I thought you were fucking with me.
No. This is hilarious. You got to keep all this in. That's what you should do, is keep all this in.
I may have to, or release it as like bonus content.
Yeah. All right, ready to go?